What did you see? Just kind of walk me through what it was like when you showed up and what your first instincts were.
When we first got there, we parked our rescue truck a couple hundred yards away from the actual incident. Lieutenant Graves and Doug got out of the truck. They went to the incident to see what we had. I had to reposition the truck to get the equipment closer to where the actual rescue was at. Once they got there, they assessed what the law enforcement guys had already done on scene. And then from there is when we started modifying what they had already done with the ropes. Yeah. Took us a few more minutes after that, and then we started the actual rescue once that happened.
And then whenever you made your way to those people, what kind of condition were they in? Were they scared? What were they saying?
Well, they didn't speak English. So I didn't hear them saying anything. I believe one of the DPS officers spoke Spanish, so he might have been talking to them. When I first went across the rope to get to them, there was just a bunch of people in the tree. They all looked scared and cold because some of them only had pants on. So I didn't really talk to any of them. DPS would put the life jacket on who they wanted to go next, and then I would take that person and go across the rope with them.
And whenever you got there and knew that you were going to have to go across that rope, were you scared? Was that water cold? I mean, how are you feeling?
It was cold. Rainwater is pretty cold. I was nervous about it because I've done a lot of training, but I haven't actually done a rescue, and I haven't been in the water in quite a few years. So I was nervous on the first couple trips across the rope, but after about the third trip, everybody had a rhythm going. The guys on the bank, which was Lieutenant Chick Graves and Doug, they had a good feel for what was going on and what the rhythm was going to be. Once we figured it out, it was just one trip after the other to get everybody across.
And what would you guys say was the hardest part of the rescue?
I would say it was the unknowing of the current, and actually none of us really having that experience before, other than Buddy taking the multiple classes that he has had. And didn't you have like evolutions in practice?
Yeah. In our training, we've done it for practice, but when you're training, you always have kind of a controlled atmosphere. And if something goes wrong or something changes, you can stop, reset, discuss it, and start over. Well, this was the real thing. You can't stop and say, oh, we messed this up, let's stop and reassess and keep going. We just had to keep going, getting people across the rope. The water was coming up fairly quickly. It was my understanding from law enforcement that when they first made contact and stretched the rope, the water was close to 2.5 to 3 foot lower than it was when we finally got there to help them. So the water was considerably higher than when they started. So that was a factor that it was rising quite fast. So we had to get them out. And you just don't have that opportunity to say, everybody take a break, let's take a breather and talk about it and start again. We just had to keep going. And if something didn't quite go right, I just had to kind of figure it out on the fly and correct it.
And how did it feel for the two of you guys being in a situation like that without maybe the proper training that you would have liked to have had?
We've had some slight training, and Buddy is able to teach us quite often just here at the fire station, little tricks of the trade and just little things to help us, give little hints to handling certain situations.
And are there certain ways that people can avoid finding themselves in these situations?
I would say, avoid low water crossings. If you can't see the road, you don't need to be driving across it. There's always another way, to get to where you're going. So it's not worth it to cross those places you're unaware of how deep the water is.
Have you guys ever found yourself in a situation like this before?
No, ma'am. This is the first real world rescue I've had to take of this caliber. Now, obviously, we go on water rescues in the past, but none of them have been this extensive and this serious. A lot of them are low water crossings here in town where the car is stalled out, but the water's not very deep. You know, we'll walk out and get somebody and help them back to the bank. But this is the first one I've done of this extensive magnitude.
And when y'all first got there and assessed the situation, did instincts kick in and you just immediately knew what you needed to do, or was there some hesitation?
The only hesitation that I ran into is I didn't initially know what was set up by law enforcement. Since I drive the rescue truck, I'm usually not the first one to go make an assessment. That's the lieutenant and the hostman's job. So I wasn't at the water side initially for the first 10 minutes or so. So I didn't really know what was there. Lieutenant Graves came back and described what they had and what he thought we were going to need to get done. Once we did that and we realized what they already had, a rope stretched across the fast moving water, from there it kind of was an instinct thing, because I do go over ropes quite extensively with them on the truck. So we knew what we had to do on tightening the rope and getting the high line set up better. And then after that, it was just one step after the next.
And this is a question for each of you. How does it make you feel to know that you played a role in saving each of those people's lives?
It makes me feel good. And that's exactly what it is. We played a role in it. We're not the only ones that were there. We're not the only ones that participated in this. There's many hands on deck that made this work out right. And it just makes me feel real good that we pulled it off and nobody got hurt and everybody came home.
You know, pretty much the same. It's gratifying. We've all had you know, fairly extensive careers and had opportunities of saving people, but nothing to this magnitude, I would say. So it's a little surreal, you know, kind of hard to believe, but like the instincts, you know, they do kick in, and you really don't even remember exact things that happened throughout it until much time later. You can pinpoint certain things you did right and wrong and learn from them.
Like I said, it was a group effort in the whole deal. And like Lieutenant said, it's kind of goes back to some training, and training kicks in before you realize exactly what all's going on. And just glad everybody's okay and everybody made it out of the safe.
And Chad, right? You're the lieutenant?
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned you can go back and look at things that were learned from this. What are some things that you guys learned from this situation?
Rainwater is really cold.
Yes, it is that. You know, really, me and Doug got in the water prior to even talking to Buddy, and me and Doug had never been in that type of situation. And as soon as we got in, we knew we needed to reset some things, and it wasn't necessarily prepared for us to go across it safely. So, you know, some things you learn is don't be too hesitant to jump in necessarily. It doesn't have to be exactly right then that has to be taken care of. It needs to be safely done, and to make sure that everybody comes out okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's all the questions that I have, but is there anything that any of you would like to add?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
Just happy. It's a very positive outcome, and everybody came out of it safe.
Yes. All right. Well, I guess you guys can get out of the spotlight now. It doesn't seem like it's your favorite place to be, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank